Super Smash Brothers 50 DLC character extravaganza. I'm gonna try to run through this real quick because I don't want to bore you all. But first things first, like my #1 overall draft pick for Smash Brothers shouldn't come as a surprise, but I voted for Inkling from Splatoon because I'm just so freaking hyped for that game. Like, you don't even know. If it wasn't gonna be Inkling, I really would have voted for Midna, because Midna is like one of my favorite characters like ever. The other two characters from Nintendo I really would have wanted to see were Daisy, because I think it's long overdue for Daisy to get sort of shared the spotlight. She should base her moveset on the Mario Strikers, because like Peach and Waluigi both use tennis rackets, and I think Peach also has a golf club as one of her side smashes. And the other character I wanted to see from Nintendo was Sammy from Advance Wars, because I'm too dumb for strategy games normally, but I loved Advance Wars. Team Squeenix, or Square Enix. I'd like to see Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII, Sora from Kingdom Hearts, Chrono from Chrono Trigger, and these two I had to do a little research on because I was familiar with the games, but I wasn't familiar with the characters. Randy from Secret of Mana. As far as I know, Randy isn't even his official name. But Will from Illusion of Gaia. Illusion of Gaia was one of my favorite RPGs from the Super Nintendo era. And I'd really like to see them in it. You could have, like, Will versus, young Link have a flute versus ocarina battle. But that's that one. Team Konami. I think a lot of people seem to agree with me on this, and I think that Simon Belmont from Castlevania really deserves to be in. Because that Castlevania is a big series, and that got its start on Nintendo. And I would just like, this will allude to something else I'll do later on, but it would just be nice to see Simon Belmont, Mega Man, and Pit in the same game. As far as other Konami characters, Sparkster from Rocket Knight. I didn't get to play Rocket Knight Adventures. I did play the original game, and I really loved it. And I think he's like a perfect fit for like a mascot type character, for Smash Brothers. Another character I think would also be good for that is Goemon or Goemon. It's gotta be Goemon. I'm dumb. Goemon from Mystical Ninja. I also think would also be a really good Capcom Konami representative. And another one, Bill Riser from the Contra series. Contra, like, the Konami code is the most famous code in video games. Contra is like one of those games that everybody played on the NES. And the thing with Bill Riser is that, like, with Bill Riser and Lance Bean and Mad Dog and Scorpion and Jimbo and Sully and the two Probotectors, that's 8 costumes right there. So you can have all of them in the game. I just think that would be cool. Team Capcom. I think Beautiful Joe and Dante. I think Alpha Omega Sin also put those two guys up, because I think that those guys would be like, well, Beautiful Joe more so than Dante. Because I don't know if Dante would fit the aesthetic. It's one of the reasons why I had considered putting Bayonetta on this list somewhere, but I just don't think she meshes well in any way, shape, or form. I would like to see her in, but I just don't think she fits the game mechanic. And I'm not saying that just because it's M-rated, because Snake is from an M-rated game. But, it is what it is. Oh, right. Speaking of Konami, because I can't believe I forgot this, but the fifth Konami guy I wanted to see in is Raiden from Revengeance. I'm not a big fan of the character, but he's representing 2 franchises there. And it also sets the stage for another dream match that I'm going to elaborate on a little bit later. But as far as going back to Capcom, Beautiful Joe and Dante, I'd also love to see Strider Hiryu, because that's a classic character. And I'd also like to see Ryu, not Street Fighter, Ryu Bateson, the Breath of Fire. Specifically, it's the Ryu from Breath of Fire 2. I'd be happy with Ryu from any Breath of Fire, really. You could probably do that as the alternate costumes, but of all the Breath of Fire games, I really loved the Breath of Fire 2. That was my favorite one. Because I actually debated whether I wanted to have Ryu or Cat/Rinpu or Nina, but I think Ryu would just be more iconic, since you'd have more options for moves with him. Because I think Nina would probably end up being basically like another Pit, and Dark Pit already made people shit themselves because they hate clones, but they demanded Lucas and Wolf be put back in, despite the fact that they're clones. I don't get that. The last member of Team Capcom, Cody Travers of both Final Fight and Street Fighter. Because that's another classic franchise, and he's also a very interesting character because he's one of those guys that didn't get the happy ending, even though he saved the girl. I think it's a very famous quote. He one of his famous win quotes. I saved the city, saved the girl, but I couldn't save myself. That doesn't really happen to most, like a lot of video game protagonists. But that also sets up another dream match, which I'm going to get to. Team Namco. I'm not really big on the Namco games, but I do have a few I would like to see. Klonoa, because I think Klonoa is another perfect fit. I would like to have seen Mario and Sonic, and okay, that's a dream match I'd like to see right there. Like Mario, Sonic, Klonoa, and Sparkster. Like, I think that those are all like characters that, like, you know, really fit together. You know, and he's like, we've already got Pac-Man in, but Klonoa was another good mascot. The other one was Lloyd Irving from the Tales of Symphonia. I didn't play the game myself, but my brother did, and I'm very familiar with some of the characters. Don't overdo it. First Aid. And I think they deserve to have some representation in the game. And the last one is actually a really, really obscure one, but it was one of my favorite arcade games growing up in the Philippines, and that's Wonder Momo. It would never hurt to have another female protagonist. Moving on to Sega. First and foremost, I wanted to have Alex Kidd back in, because I think even though Sonic is the mascot of Sega, he's not the original mascot of Sega. That was Alex Kidd. Another character I would like to see from Sega is Hotsuma, the most recent iteration of Shinobi. Shinobi is another classic arcade game, and my cousin also had a Sega Master System, and Shinobi was one of the games that he had. And Beat from Jet Set Radio. I didn't get to play the Jet Set Radio games much, but what I did play was really fun. And the big obscure character I want for Sega, one of my favorite platform games on the Sega Saturn, a Stall. Like, Sega pushes the shit out of Sonic, but they ignore the other franchises. So give that a look. And the last guy for Sega, Axel Stone from Streets of Rage. Because Streets of Rage was another big game. Like, it was Streets of Rage 2 was one of the very first games. I think it was the second game for the Sega Genesis that we got. A relatively obscure company that I'm not even sure is still around before, but Team Data East. Characters I want from Data East. Joe and Mac from Caveman Ninja, because Caveman Ninja was one of my favorite arcade games back when I was going up to McGuire. Blade and or Striker from Bad Dudes, which was another, like, you can probably see there's kind of a theme there with their style of game. And finally, Peter Pepper from Burger Time. I don't know what, if anything, you could do with that. Moving on to another, like, old school company, Team Taito. You'll know who they are because the very first people I want them to be, the very first game characters I want them to have, Billy Lee and Jimmy Lee, aka Double Dragon. And it's not even, Double Dragon wasn't even the first game. This actually ties into the next character I want from Team Taito, and that's Kunio from the Kunio-kun series of games. Most of you will probably recognize them as from Super Dodgeball, Crash and the Boys, and Renegade and River City Ransom. That's all the Kunio-kun series. And now I can finally talk about it now that I've introduced them, because that's one of the dream fights I would love to see happen. Because with Smash Brothers, we got Mario, Sonic, Mega Man, and Pac-Man in the same game. That was like a freaking dream match. So that one dream match I would like to see: Billy Lee from Double Dragon, Blade from Bad Dudes, Axel Stone from Streets of Rage, and Cody from Final Fight duking it out. I mean, I think we've waited a long time for that. I mean, I get a little giddy thinking about it. But I know the odds of that are very, very low. This is just my wish list. But going back to Team Taito, Pocky and Rocky from that series of games, I never got to play them, but I know it's a long-standing series. And the final one, which is another big one and a relatively obscure one, Vern Griffiths of the Psychic Force series. Another really obscure company, Hudson Soft. I think they've been bought out. I think they've been bought out by Konami. I'm not sure. I'd have to look that up. But characters like to see. It's another one. I think Alpha Omega Sin also put this guy forward. But Bomberman. I think Bomberman would be fun. Other characters from the Hudson Soft. It would be Master Higgins from the Adventure Island series. And the other one, this was one of the other ones, because back in the 16-bit era, it was mostly Nintendo versus Sega, but there was a third party, well, a third contender, and that was NEC with the TurboGrafx 16. And the closest thing they had to a mascot was Bonk the Caveman. And I would have liked to have seen, and this is something I never thought I would see, but it could potentially happen, where we would have, I mean, I was just seeing that on Virtual Console back on the Wii, that you could get Sonic games and TurboGrafx 16 games. So Mario, Sonic, and Bonk all ended up on one console. And the final one from Team Hudson Soft, even though I was never a big fan of the games, but I like the idea behind it. Yugo Ogami from the Bloody Roar series. I think it's Beasterizer. I'm not sure. I saw the game Beasterizer in one of my barracks back when I was in the Navy. And this is a really obscure one. Team Tecmo. I only have two characters from Tecmo I really want to see. Rygar, and that's a really old reference. The other big Tecmo guy, Ryu Hayabusa of the Ninja Gaiden series. If you got Ryu from Street Fighter in the game, with Ryu from Breath of Fire, you could have a Ryu versus Ryu match. But Ryu Hayabusa is a classic Ninja Gaiden series. It was the very first cinematic game that I remember. Okay, now that I've gotten this far with Ryu Hayabusa, then I can talk about the other dream match I wanted to have. Now that I've set that up. Raiden from Metal Gear Revengeance, Strider Hiryu, Shinobi, and Ninja Gaiden. All in the same. You got 4 ninjas in the same game. You can't imagine. You can't tell me that wouldn't be hot. And here we get to what I considered free. These were one-shot games. These were one-shot games where these characters only appeared in one game, but these are some of my favorite games on the NES. So, most of you are going to be familiar with Clash of Demon Head thanks to Scott Pilgrim, but I love that game. So, I have a vote for Billy Blitz, the hero of that game, to make it into Smash. Another character is Scott O'Connor from Kabuki Quantum Fighter. Another one that's really obscure is Steve Herman from the game Shatterhand. I never got to beat that game. I think I got to the very last boss, but that was a game that was also really intense. The final one from the freeze section is, I don't think the character, apparently the character didn't actually have a name, but I think the widely accepted name is Miria from Guardian Legend. That was another hard as hell game, but I loved it. The characters from the indie circuit that I want to see in. Gianna from the Gianna Sisters, because that's going way back. That was the very first Mario rival. Another big one was, it's probably one of the biggest indie games out there, Cave Story, so I'd like to see Quote and or Curly Brace. It could probably just make Quote and Curly interchangeable characters like Robin is for Fire Emblem. And another one, Paddy Wagon from Mighty Switch Force, because that's another game that's I'm not really big on puzzles, but it's a puzzle platformer, and the character designs, the music is just phenomenal for that game series. And finally, Beck from Mighty No. 9. I mean, you can't say that Mega Man vs. Beck wouldn't be hot to look at. I mean, just the concept of seeing those two in the same game. I believe that's 49, so my last vote for the 50th one is going to be like a really obscure, well, not really obscure, but just a really out there entry, because he's not actually from a video game. He's from a show based on video games. And it's probably the very first show that put forth the idea of what if we all these, not before even Wreck-It Ralph, what if we put all these video game franchises in the same world? And that's Captain N. I just think we're long overdue. But yeah, that's my 50 character extravaganza. Thank you for your time if you stayed with this. Let me know what you guys think. Whatever characters you guys like, if you guys agree, if you guys don't agree, if you think I'm stupid, it is what it is. But whatever characters you want to see in Smash Brothers, how hyped are you for it? So thanks again for 50 subscribers, and I'll see you guys in the next video.